Hello, everyone. You guys already know me. I'm GGian, and I'm here to talk about Gods Unchained today. Our very special guest is Derek, which is the producer at Gods Unchained and Immutable. How you doing, Derek?
We go. I am unmuted. I am well. How are you, my friend?
I'm pretty well as well. Nice.
Good.
So, for those of you who are not familiar with Gods Unchained, it's a free to play tactical card game that gives players true ownership of their in game items through NFTs. It also has a play to earn model, which means that you are going to be able to earn money just by playing the game. So, thank you so very much for coming to the show, Derek.
My
As a
pleasure.
long time player of Gods Unchained, I was making the calculations. I think I'm currently at almost 10,000 games. I
Wow.
really, really wanted to pick your brain for a while, and now I have the opportunity.
This is going to be fun. Let's dive into it.
Yes. So, why don't you start by telling us what's exactly your work at Immutable?
Look. So, as a producer, it's my job to execute on the vision of the game director. So, I work very closely with Chris Clay, and um, uh, I guess you know I often joke that my job is telling people no a lot because my job is to balance the sort of three sides of the triangle, right? The money side, the quality side, and the time side. And um, you can increase quality at the expense of time and budget, or you can get things out quicker at the cost of
Mhm.
quality. So it's my job to balance those and make sure that they're all working in sync and we're getting the right result for the players at the end of the day.
All right, saying no to people. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that.
You do have to exercise your no voice quite a lot. It's and that doesn't make the producer the most favorite person in
Mhm.
the studio, but yeah, that's what I signed up for.
That's great. So, do you want to give us a brief overview about how the game works?
Yeah, so Gods Unchained is a card-based game, and you have cards in a deck that you have created or that you've used from one of the ones that we supply in the game, and you place cards on a board, and those cards turn into creatures that you can then use to attack your opponent, and your opponent is doing the same thing. You can either attack your opponent's cards or you can attack your opponent's god, and the first person to kill the other person's god wins basically, and that is the core of the game. It's a fairly well established genre. The notable ones in the marketplace are Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, and Gods Unchained is looking to take on those kind of guys.
All right. Yes. So I'm very curious. As I said, I've been playing for quite a while. So what is very important to us that are exploring the blockchain side of gaming is player counts and how are we going to go about grow those games and grow the space.
Hmm.
And here at Whale, we also trying to grow the space and participate and have assets and collectively own those assets from diverse games. And I would like to know. So I I saw that you guys just released a tutorial, which was quite interesting because for a long while there was no tutorial. So
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on the current new player experience and progression?
So yeah, you're right. There's So let's go back a step, and when we talk about somebody who hears about Gods Unchained, what are the barriers to entry for them, and
Mhm.
where are the elements of friction that comes to getting them into playing the game? And I think there's two experiences that we want to talk about here. what is their experience playing the game as a new player, and what are their experiences progressing into the game to become, to exploring some of the more intricate elements of
Yes.
the new cards and the new systems that we've got. So let's deal with the new player experience first. Downloading the game is very easy, and it's free, and you install it, and then you start to play the game. And we found that people had trouble because they didn't have many cards that they could use to create their own decks with.
Mm-hmm.
So they were, when they initially downloaded the game, they were stuck with the default decks that we had on offer, and you had to play a huge amount of games in order to win enough cards, enough packs, to start, really getting into the depth of the games. And the way that we addressed that was with the welcome set, and that got released earlier on this year. And I thought that was a very good interim step. But the real one was getting that tutorial out there, and having a very step-by-step process of how this is how you play Gods Unchained. These are some of the keywords, and this is what your final objective is. So I guess first off, we had a practice match, and then we introduced the welcome set, and now we've got the tutorial. So I'm fairly confident that we're getting into a good stream of new players coming in to have a good experience and have them turn into long-time players. But that progression from a new player to a long-time player, or somebody who buys packs, that was where there was also a very great deal of friction. It is very intimidating for somebody who is not a blockchain expert or uses the blockchain even on a casual basis to set up an account and buy cards with Ethereum. You've got to download MetaMask, and even downloading MetaMask is freaky. It gives you all these warnings about how it's going to
Yes.
change things on your web page, and it's a pretty intimidating thing. And then you've got to set up a Wise account or some kind of cryptocurrency account, and then you've got to attach your bank account to all of that, and move money across, and all of those steps. There's people that we're losing along the way, and we figured we had to make that easier, and that's what credit card purchasing is kind of trying to get around. Credit card purchasing was not as easy as we thought it was, but it is a really sort of necessary step, I think, in order to help new players get into the game and start purchasing cards.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting perspective you have. I have never thought of this as in points of frictions, and like how each step is going to decrease the number of people that are willing to go through them. So yeah, it appears that credit card is indeed very important. Is it like close to be fully accepted?
Sorry, say again.
So is credit card close or to be fully accepted?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the game at the moment, and we've sort of launched it as a soft launch. It was a very long road in order to get it in the game, not just from a user perspective, but also from a legal perspective and a security perspective from our side. Somebody could essentially come in with a credit card and buy thousands of dollars worth of cards and have those cards minted onto the blockchain, and then turn around and say, somebody stole my credit card, give me my money back.
And
And that's a big challenge for us. How do we stop that from happening? And that's why there's a 90-day escrow period on the credit card purchases. So there's a lot of barriers. There was a lot of barriers to getting credit cards up and running.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So as you just said, like there's a number of steps that people need to do, and you guys are looking to smooth the process as much as possible. So you guys looking at the each step and trying to tick all the boxes. So my question here is, when you look at the new player set, when you look at the tutorial, are you guys trying to tick all the boxes and then try to advertise, or you guys are already actively trying to increase the player count as is?
We're trying to actively increase the player count, but at the moment, our advertising and our I guess our are focused towards the crypto community, and that's where a lot of our new players are coming from. Um, in order to move to a more broader market, which is really where we obviously want to be and where a lot of our growth is going to come from, we do want to tick a few more of those boxes and make it as easy as possible for new players to get in the game.
Mm-hmm. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the next box that we really need to tick is IMX, and that is going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit our current players and our future players. Um, but being able to take us away from some of those points of friction that new players
Mhm.
face will be really good.
So, can you expand on that? What's Immutable X for anyone who haven't heard yet?
Yeah, so Immutable X is a scaling system for purchasing our products. And at the moment, there is a gas price to every transaction that occurs on the Ethereum network. And that gas is making it prohibitively expensive to make smaller purchases like buying a pack of cards or even selling a card on the open market. And Immutable X is a a piece of back end technology that uh, accumulates a whole bunch of transactions all together and then does it in one hit and only has that gas price once, and allows us to do a lot of those transactions essentially for free in the future.
Essentially for free. Yeah, so that sounds really promising. Yeah, because I was looking the other day, yesterday actually, at that website where you can check the amount you paid for gas, and I was
Right.
scared. I was really scared, and a big
Yeah.
portion of that is probably like packs and stuff, and every single transaction is small, but then it adds up to a lot. So that's definitely going to be making people way more comfortable in starting the game out. That's great.
Yeah, and that price is fine if if you're sending $20,000 to a contractor um, in a foreign country, but it's no good if you're buying a
Yeah.
pack of cards on Gods
Sure.
Unchained.
Yeah, exactly. Just a $5 thing, and then you have to pay $1 extra and start to not make sense to purchase, right? So that's
Exactly.
important.
Yeah.
So moving on to gameplay, balance, and competitive play. This is a part that always, I think it will always have a never-ending discussion, but it's very interesting in my opinion. Is what's your point of view in managing game balance in a blockchain or NFT game where the assets are basically immutable?
Yeah. Yeah. So uh, the idea here is, this is where we fall first almost to our game designers and say, um, we want you to be innovative and we want you to create uh, cards that are fun and interesting to play, but that don't break the meta and that that aren't overpowered.
Hmm.
Um, and they do a really good job of taking that goal and making cards for the seasons that we release. Um, that's the first step, and then the next step is we need to take all of those cards and release them to the users with the understanding that will still require tweaking after they've been sold.
Hmm.
So that's our second step, where people we release all the cards and people play with them, and we start to figure out where they can be exploited and make changes there. And so we've 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 ummed and ahed about how long that period should be. Like, how long should we leave cards out there to be balanced and find out where the strong points and the weak points are. And I think that's something that we'll always struggle with. And at the moment, we're looking at sort of a 90-day, a 3-month kind of period, but it may be more or less than that in the future.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's a very interesting approach. I have been playing Magic the Gathering for quite a while, and there's always that feeling on the back of our head that, oh, I might invest in a deck, and then the next day it might be banned, you know?
Right.
And one thing that the card games that are physical they cannot do is to change the cards, but then at the same time there's the promise of having the cards being an asset that you own and doesn't change. So I think this balancing period idea is a really good middle term
Mm.
on both sides. That is, yes, at some point this will not change, but at the same time we are going to be able to properly balance and test things. So I think that's just great.
Yeah, yeah, and it's scary. You know, it's it's a scary position to
Yeah.
be in. Um, you know, I come from a background of making console games. You know, I've worked on a lot of console games and in my time, and you know, before the PS3 and console games before that, you released a game and that was it. You couldn't change it.
Mhm.
You couldn't update it. You couldn't patch it or anything like that. And that is a big challenge that we had back in the day. And I think we're dealing with the same kind of challenge here.
That's a very interesting point because there was no iterative game design at that point, right? There
That's right.
was no internet to update things, and now a game released and it has an update 24 hours later, just to quick fix stuff. It's
I I have been playing about 4 hours of Cyberpunk 2077 last night, and yes, that game needs a patch straight away.
that game needs a patch already. Oh my god!
Yeah.
All right. So, on the gameplay side, what's the upcoming feature that you're most excited about?
Um, I don't know. I probably can't mention half the ones that I'm
Oh,
excited about.
damn,
And
that's
this is like, you know, Derek, which one of your children do you love the most? Um, but I'm very excited about the you know, the things that are really close, like stars and our star store. Really feel like that's another tick box to ease players into the game and
Mhm.
make them feel welcomed and good and excited about you know progressing through the game. And the other thing, one of the other guys are working on, and I may be speaking out of turn here, um, a quest system that
Ooh,
will be rolling out pretty soon.
all right.
That quest system is fairly focused on the new players. But yeah, I think that's something, because I come from an RPG background and role playing games, and I love those kind of quest models. They really incentivize me. So I think we're going to do a really good job with those.
Yeah, I'm completely obsessed by progression systems. So that's
Right.
for me, it would have been a draw for sure. It was the kind of stuff that when I came in, I didn't thought about not having it,
Mm.
but it's definitely going to be enjoyable for the new players. So on the competitive play aspect, one of the promises of the game was in regards of competitive scene on esports on the blockchain. So you guys are going to be having at some point, yet not defined date, $500,000 tournament.
Yep.
And do you want to talk a little bit more about this?
Not really.
Oh
No,
my god,
I
it's so honest.
I do. I do want to talk about it. I mean, it is one of those things that we need to make a couple of ticks in order before we're ready to do that. So I think it's not something that's in our immediate future, unfortunately. And I do want to get to that sort of mass market adoption, so that we can have a really vibrant, amazing tournament. And I'm absolutely blown away by the community tournaments that are happening. I just um, again coming from my background, to see that level of community engagement is so exciting to me. um, and I think the community tournaments are going to fill the gaps until we can like we say, tick those boxes and remove that friction and have a larger community, and then dive into an amazing tournament.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So on that note, is there that you can speak of an upcoming feature as tournament management or tools or like spectator mode, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think all of those things are some of those ticks. I think spectator mode is a really big one on my list, and a lot of the people here would really like to see that. And we're very keen to um, embrace those communities that are creating those tournaments and help them do it
Mhm.
better. So, yeah, I don't have a great deal of things to say about that, but it's very high on our list.
No worries. That's just great. So another angle to all of this is, of course, the market. A big part of being an NFT is that you're able to sell, you're able to trade. And I always wondered, do you guys pay any attention to the secondary market? And if you guys do, is there any sort of indicator or information that you guys are trying to gather by looking at the market?
Look, I think the biggest indicator that we learn from watching the secondary markets is how much liquidity is there. And obviously, a lot of that liquidity has been stymied by the fact that gas prices are so high. And so a lot of people are not bothering to trade cards that are lower in value.
Mhm.
So, um, for that reason, the market isn't telling us too much right now, because it's hampered by this singular fact. Um, when we do see good liquidity in the market, it does give us a good idea. I mean, one of the core tenets of our game is that you can earn money by playing it. And so that the secondary market can tell us how much money people are actually earning. And I think that's a really good indicator. y- the free to play games are mired in stats. There's all sorts of data and statistics that you
Mhm.
can mine out of um, the players, the way the market is moving, and in particular, mobile phone games are particularly, I guess, um, they focus on this quite a lot. And one of the statistics that mobile phone games use is ARPDAU, which is the average revenue per active user.
Oh, okay.
And so that's how much money you get per person on average. And um, I'm interested in flipping that on its head and trying to determine how much money our users are making from the sale of our products.
Oh, wow.
Because that's one of our core tenets. So I'm really
Hmm.
interested to see when the market starts to get a bit more lively, and when IMX comes out, um, how much information we can gain on how much our users are getting out of the game.
So I was going to hold the audience questions to the end of the interview, but there's one here that I think really fits, and everything that you just talked right now, it's just like it blows me away that you guys are making that kind of consideration. So, do you guys currently have any sort of idea how much people are making on average?
No. No,
No.
at the moment
Okay.
we don't, um, and it is a little bit hard to determine because, um, there's not just our marketplace. There's OpenSea, and there's Token Trove, and there's all these other markets. And how do we amass all of the trades from all of those and assign it back to the people?
Mhm.
Um, and so I think, again, we haven't turned our attention to that because the market is in a bit of a state where there's not a lot of trade happening on the lower end of the scale, and I think that's where most of the information will come from. So that's why we're not
Mhm.
harvesting that data just yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, on another angle of the market, and something that also reminds me of games, for example, like Magic the Gathering, is what's your approach on how's your understanding on the conflict of interest that often arrives from the investors slash collectors versus the players, the people that just wanna, let's say, accumulate, and the people that just wanna access.
Mm. Yeah, so it comes down to market segmentation, and obviously when you're making a game, you kind of look at who are our primary audience and who are our secondary audience, and what do those two market segments need, and how do we how do we excite and interest both of them. Um, I don't feel like there's a conflict there between those two. Uh, at Immutable, we have a whole other part of the business that is working to satisfy the investor type things,
Mhm.
in giving those people tools to um, uh, move further and get deeper into that side of things. And here on the Gods Unchained side of things, we're looking at creating a fantastically fun game, and and we're focused on players, but the two halves of our company are inextricably linked to each other, and as a result, we're talking on a daily basis with the people working on the IMX, and the people working on credit cards and things like that. So um, for us, it's not really a conflict as much as it is seeing things from another point of view.
So basically, you saying that we understand that they're looking for different things, and thus we want to provide to each their own, right?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Perfect. So this is a fun one. This is a fun one because you will be judged by your
Oh,
by your answer, right?
okay.
What's your single most favorite Gods Unchained card?
Ah, um, yes, I will be judged by this. I think that I may not be the standard type of player, because I really like cards that do interesting stuff. And these cards may not be the most powerful cards, and they may not be the most well loved cards in the community, and they may not be the cards that win you the most amount of matches. But um, what's a good example? So something like Vow of Champions. where you've got to pick one card and you can heal your god, or you can do 2 damage, or there's all of those sorts of levers that you can pull when you play that card to affect the battle. I love that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Another one might be Pious Giant,
Oh,
where depending on whether you've got 20 favor or not, it gives you a different thing. And the idea is when you get that card, it's like, do I lay it out now and get the 20 favor, or do I wait till I've got 20 favor and lay it out and get a +3/+3? I love that kind of push and pull um, between the risk versus reward.
you like cards with options.
I do, yeah.
That's interesting.
And and I think maybe some of the flow graphers and the programmers who make these cards don't like those cards, because I think out of all of the cards that have the opportunity to provide us with bugs, the
Mhm.
pick one cards are probably up there. So
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
they give the programmers a lot of headaches.
And what about the favorite god then? I'm thinking maybe Deception, something like that.
I I I don't play a lot of Deception.
Good. You shouldn't.
It's too hard. It's too much of a
Yes.
pain. I think my game director Chris Clay is now shaking his head in disgust at me as I say that. But no, I do love. So I'm a very I guess instinctive player, and I love to play fast and hard. And I think that's why I like the pick one cards, because they force me to slow my
Mhm.
game down and think a little bit more about what I'm doing. But nature and war, sort of lend to my strengths. Light does a little bit as well, but
Mhm.
I don't like Lysander. Sorry, not Lysander, Ethereal. Lysander's great. I love Lysander, but
Mhm.
I don't like Therial. He looks like a giant jerk. Um,
It does.
so where do I sit? What is my favorite god? Um, yeah, I think it would be probably between nature and war.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mm.
The only wrong answer would be Deception, really. So you're pretty.
I think Chris Clay would disagree with you there. You can fight it out with him on that one.
Oh damn! Now you remind me, Chris Clay, the guy who did cosplay on Ratify.
That's
When
right.
are we going to see you in cosplay? In which?
Well, and who would I cosplay as?
Yes.
I think I've already given my answer to that in this interview.
Oh, you're doing Pious Giant then.
No, I think I could make a pretty decent go at Lysander.
Oh, okay. You just said how he sounds like a jerk, but fine, I guess.
Oh no, Therial's a jerk, but Lysander,
Oh, okay.
Lysander's story I think is just amazing. And uh, when that was the first story that Kelly Diggs provided to us, and I was so enamored by that. And I just thought, my God, if this is the standard of what we're going to get going forward with working with Kelly, I think this is just going to be amazing. So, and he didn't disappoint. All of the origin stories of all of the champions were just beautiful. So,
It's very.
um, yeah,
So this is interesting. Now that you mention it, you guys are going to be looking at expanding the lore or like putting as much attention as it has been put on season one.
yeah. Look. I mean, like I've said, I'm a role playing guy, and I love the story and the lore behind um, our mythology. And yes, it's definitely going to be a big part of what we do going forward.
That's great. So I think now we have a little bit more time. So if the audience has any questions, we're going to be going through them. Uh, I have one here from Freedom. He asked, with Immutable X introducing a side chain for cards, and please correct him if he's wrong on the terminology, while Genesis is on the main chain, what's the plan to move existing cards onto Immutable X?
That is a great question, and it is something that we are looking at quite closely. I don't have an answer for Friedan yet. And can we just say how lovely Friedan is on his
I agree.
streams?
I
I
agree.
love watching his streams. He's so
Me too.
calm and welcoming, and yes. So I love you, bud. But definitely um, that 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 aspect is a known unknown, and we're looking at it quite closely.
Oh, okay. Any idea on the options you guys are considering?
No, I mean, um, to wax lyrical for a little bit. Do you know that bit in um, uh, the movie Jurassic Park where Samuel Jackson says, we have all of the problems of a zoo and a theme park and a technology company all at the same time. I kind of feel like Immutable is a little bit like that. We have all of the challenges of being a financial organization and being a games company and providing, this service that's on a system that we don't own. So there are all sorts of complex um, agreements and desires that are both sort of within and without our company that we need to kind of take into consideration. So, yeah, again, it's something that we're looking at very closely, but we don't know what the solution is going to be right now.
All right, that sounds fair and complicated at the same time. So this on that note, you brought a very important topic. It's like you guys are discovering new grounds. You guys are trying to go through what was at the time completely in the explored place, right?
Mm.
So, would you consider your work at Immutable your most challenging one?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I say, I started out um, producing games for the Sega Genesis or the Sega Mega Drive, depending on where you are in the world, and and I've been making games ever since then. And um, working on consoles is great fun. Making games on PC is great fun. Making mobile phone games is great fun. But this is definitely the most challenging role that I've ever been in, and it's so much fun because every day I get up and there are new and different challenges that face me, and that's what kind of keeps me really interested in what I'm doing here.
Oh, you make it sound like challenging is really good. So that's great.
Oh, absolutely. There are no problems in the world. There are only challenges, and I actually firmly believe that. So, um, I think here we are absolutely solving challenges day by day.
Hmm. So we now have here a personal question. Which games did you work on Sega?
Um, so my my start in the games industry was working on the Mega Drive games and releasing those games into Australia. The in essence, my job back then was a marketing and a sales role. Like we would get games that were coming in overseas, not just from Sega, but from a whole bunch of companies. Accolade and Activision and all of those sorts of companies would sell their games to us, and we would sell them in Australia for them.
Hmm.
And um, so that kind of was fun, and it was, in the games industry, but it wasn't something that um, where I was actively making games. The very first game where I had an actual hand in building it from the ground up was a game called Shane Warne Cricket. Now, obviously, cricket is a very big pastime here in Australia and in England.
Hmm.
And in England, there was a company called Codemasters that had produced a game called Brian Lara Cricket, and they said to us, it would be fairly easy for us to change it from Brian Lara, who was a British cricketer, to
Uh-huh.
an Australian cricketer. Do you want to take up this opportunity and find an Australian cricketer who wants to be the face of this game in Australia? And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. Let's do that. And so I went out and I found Shane Warne and found his manager, and we did the deal, and we released Shane Warne Cricket in Australia. And that was the first time that I'd had the opportunity to influence the future, release of a game. And from that moment on, I was absolutely hooked. I was just like, I remember being in a GameStop, in a games shop here in Australia, and seeing someone buy that game, and I was just blown away. Like, I helped craft
Yeah,
that game,
that's
and this is the
amazing.
thing that I want to do from now on. So
I,
yeah,
I love this. I love this. This was such an interesting approach. Just like, oh yeah, choose the face. Oh my
yep,
god.
yep.
So I have here another one. What advice would you give to aspiring game producers coming into this space? And alternatively, what advice would you recommend them not to take?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, so um, first of all, learn the craft. Learn what people uh, are doing, and how games are being made nowadays. We're very much within the Scrum model here, and agile game development, and consume books on that. Clifton Keith's book on agile game development is really good, and the best place to start. Um, Game production is kind of interesting and challenging all at the same time. Um, and again, I think going back to probably one of the first things that we talked about here in the interview,
Hmm.
you need to exercise your no muscle. You need to be able to tell people that this is not the right direction to go down, or this is not the thing that we need to be doing right now, or this is not the time to discuss that. Um, and so you need to be sort of prepared to be that bad guy from time to time. And what advice would I not give? Would I? Um, I think in order to be that guy that helps get the vision to what it's going to be, you have to understand that vision. You have to um, have clarity around it.
Hmm.
And so, I remember vividly talking to two different people who were working on a game that was next to my game.
Hmm.
I was working on a game for um, it was Shogun Total War, um,
Oh.
and the other guys that were in the same studio that were working on a game were working on a surfing game, and they came to me advice, and they said, we're not progressing very well with this. What would you tell me to do? And I started to talk to them and got a bit of an idea, and I said, okay. And I talked to the producer, and I said, pitch me the game that you're making. And the producer said, we're making SSX on water, so like
Hmm.
a skiing game, but on a wave.
Yes.
And I turned to the other guy, the game director, and I said, pitch me the game that you're making. And he said, we're making a surfing simulator. And I said, okay, so right here, you have two different people who are the
Yes.
key vision holders for this game, and you're making two different things.
Uh-huh.
So you're not on the same page. You're pulling the team in two different directions, and that's what I think is the problem. So that clarity of vision is really important for you to share, and that's kind of what I love about working with Clay, because we're really in alignment on the on on the vision of this, and um, the other thing that I love about working with Clay is that we disagree. We will absolutely argue with each other, and we both know that we're arguing for the good of the product, or we
Yeah.
believe that we're arguing for the good of the product, and we don't make it personal and we don't take it personally. And at the end of the day, we're always keen to walk home together. Like we have a regular moment where we leave the office and we walk to the train station together, and we talk about
Mm-hmm.
work, or we don't talk about work, or we talk about our families. And so I think that's a really key thing to have, is that simpatico with the other vision holder, if you want to be a good producer.
Man, that's such a great answer. Oh my god, that's gold. They should have gotten a notebook or something. Oh, and it's a beat. Look at that. Man, yeah, that's the gold right there. Amazing. I love it.
All right.
So, next one. What type of testing goes into releasing a new card set?
Oh man, yeah, a lot. Um, our cards go through several iterations. Um, First of all, they're designed by the designers, and then they're handed off to flowgraphers, and the flowgraphers kind of make those cards work in the game. And flowgraphers have a very um, comprehensive set of tools that allow them to uh,
Mm-hmm.
put the cards into the game and have them function as the designers want. But there are times where if it's a new card functionality, we need to involve the programmers and allow them to
Mm-hmm.
provide that functionality to the flowgraphers. And so then after that, the cards get put into the set, and that set is made available to all of the people in the office, in the company, and we're able to test those cards and see if they're working right.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that happens, we give feedback to the designers and the flowgraphers, and they're able to um, uh, tweak them or make them better or interesting, or however. Then after that, we have an external testing company that can also do sort of exploratory testing, and they can figure out if those cards are tested correctly. And then finally we have the balancing period, and I think we're going to add a new step in between those last two steps, where we might be able to make cards available on a public test realm.
Oh,
um, that's a bit challenging in terms of the leaking of cards,
yeah.
and so that we're currently working out how we might be able to do that. But that's basically our process, how we test cards.
All right. That's quite detailed. Nice.
Hmm.
So, what do you think of the possibility of having VR settings or like walking into a room and playing a Gods Unchained match? Doable?
It's doable. I know. I've done a couple of virtual reality products, and I I'm unsure of how how much it's going to add to the experience. Um, we have a very focused gameplay area, and anything outside of that is a distraction. And if we give the player the ability to look around the room in a virtual reality setting,
Mhm.
that's just going to take focus away from the actual gameplay. So the last time I did a stream, I talked a little bit about how we go about making our backgrounds and um, our boards that people play on, and there's a push and pull there between making the backgrounds interesting and making them
Yeah,
distracting.
distracting. Yes.
And yeah, so with everything that we do, we look at it from, how does this benefit the game and the player? And in a VR setting, I'm not sure that it does.
Pretty fair. Pretty fair. So I think we're going to be having the last question is very open ended. So I think it will end on a good note.
Ah,
What?
some people will give me a chance to talk my head off, which I haven't been doing.
Yes. Yes. What's the single most defining point in your career?
The single most defining point in my career. I mean, having that person buy my game for the very first time was really a powerful moment. Um, I think the other time was a game that I pitched. I came up with the concept. I pitched it to my boss. I found the development studio to make it. I worked on it throughout its entire lifetime, and I helped design the box cover art and launched it to a massive success. Um, and that was a game called Big Beach Sports for the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
And it's possibly the game that I've sold the most amount of copies of, um, on a single platform. And uh, yeah, I think that was really a really important one for me. I wanted to make a game that was like Wii Sports, but for the rest of the world. Wii Sports seemed very um, American and Japanese focused, and I wanted to make a game with beach cricket and beach volleyball and um, frisbee golf and all of these cool things. And when we thought about it more, these were all things that you could do on a beach, or um, and so I pitched that game to my boss, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Yes, I think this is a great idea. Go ahead and make it." And I handled the entire thing from there. And we sold more than 2 million units of that game, and I think that was a
That's
really
amazing.
defining moment for me.
That's amazing. All right. Man, such great questions. Thank you very much for the audience. And thank you very much for you for taking your time to be here and talk a little bit to us. Of course, there would be plenty more to go around. The project, as you said, is quite complex, but I think we now have a pretty good overview of what it is about and why everyone should try it out. So
All
thank
right.
you, Derek.
Thank you
Any
for having
last
me. This was
words?
fun.
Oh yeah, man. For me, it was a lot of fun. I was quite nervous. This is my first interview I'm doing,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, but like I had a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Good. Good. Me too.
Bye bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.